In an endeavor to answer this question about where are we and how do we know we've arrived at this place that is beyond the bondage of a conditioned mind, or beyond Satchitananda, we've explored looking at those things that are absent in our life that were present before, and those things that are perhaps now present in our life that were absent before. But before reminding of a story that really allows us to have the possibility of answering both those questions at once, is to prepare the mind. It's just a reminder of that old story about Mulla when he was walking down the road as the evening was coming down, when he saw a cloud of dust coming towards him, and immediately his mind said, "Oh, it's a group of soldiers coming to conscript me into the army," because there was a war going on in that province. So Mulla runs and jumps a fence, a ditch, and finds himself in a cemetery ground. So as he's running, he falls into an open grave and is lying there at the bottom of the hole, when the travelers who were coming the other way happened to see him. So they followed him, and dismounting from their horses, they looked down into the hole where the Mulla was, and they said, "What are you doing down there?" And the Mulla was very embarrassed. So he looked at them rather abashed, and he said, "Let's just say that I'm here because of you, and you're here because of me." The reminder of that story is about this old dervish, and he wandered the land, and he was kindly. People would give him food and often a piece of material that he could patch his patchwork cloak, that cloak that dervishes wear. But one day he was sitting under a tree eating some dates that some kind being had given him, when a rather simple and poor man came and sat beside him. And the old dervish greeted the man and said, "Oh, welcome. Would you like to share my dates with me?" And the simple poor man said, "Yes, I have no family, I have no friends, I have nowhere to stay, I have nowhere to live." And he accepted the dates. And after they'd eaten amicably together, the poor man said to the old dervish, "Would you mind if I accompanied you on the road?" And the old dervish said, "I have nothing to offer you, but you're welcome to share the road with me, if you will." So they travelled together, and because the dervish was that kindly man, and his face was known in many places, and is the way of dervishes, they tend to follow a certain path, the poor simple man was given the alms and food that the old dervish received. Now, one day the simple poor man came to the old dervish, and he said, "Master, I notice that you like to whittle with your very, very sharp knife, and I found this piece of wood. Maybe you can make something of it." So from that time on, whenever they stopped the old dervish would be found whittling with a piece of wood. And one day the simple poor man said to him, "Master, what is it you're making?" The old dervish said, "My son, it is better not to ask this question. Something will be revealed." So they would often stop at a coffee shop, a tea house, and people would ask the old dervish, "What is it you're making?" Because he would be whittling the piece of wood that was getting smaller and smaller, but exquisitely carved. The old dervish would reply, "Something will be revealed." So one day, a very hot day, it was noonday, and the old dervish and the poor simple man were sitting at a tea house, and the old dervish was still whittling this exquisitely carved piece of wood, which was now just bigger than a date, when, passing by, there was a young woman carrying a basket of fruit on her head, and on her arm there was a baby that was in great distress, wailing, crying, weeping. The lady was sweating and obviously in a very agitated state. But just as they were passing, the old dervish got up from his seat and went over to the woman and the baby, and he said, "My sister, I have something that I think you might need." And he popped the little carving into the baby's mouth. The baby started sucking contentedly and was quiet as she carried him off down the road. When the dervish went back to the table at which they were sitting, the dervish said to the simple payman, "You see, unbeknownst to me, I was carving a baby's comforter." What is it that's absent in our life that was present before, and that's present in our life that was absent before? Very clearly indicated by this simple story. How often nowadays do you find yourself having a thought, going to town, pick up the phone, go shopping in Smithfield? And how different is it to what it was before, when we would argue, "Oh, I need a shower, I have to sweep the floor. I don't want to go into town today." Is it now that you're finding yourself where you instantly respond, without question, no dialogue, no argument? What do I have to go into town for? Why do I have to do this? Could it be deigned to be said that that which is absent in our life now is that dialogue, that argument? But if I do this, this might happen. The dialogue is absent. The questioning is absent. But what is present in its place? What's present in its place? First of all, obedience, no questioning, no doubt. You get up, you go into town, and you might be thinking, oh, maybe I'll go to the post office, I've got to buy a card from a... But you get waylaid by someone in the street. You never do get to the post office, but that's where you were supposed to be because you were supposed to meet that person, to have that interaction. Isn't it so? Isn't this in your life now?
Yeah, it flows.
Yes. And it's so simple, it's so clear, isn't it? What is absent is an absence of doubt. But what is present is clarity, obedience, not any doubt. Isn't this so for us now? And clearly indicators of a place that is beyond the thrall of a mind that's conditioned, that will argue about every little thing. Isn't it? Where we were before. Oh, but if I do this, this might happen. Constant toing and froing. Certitude, isn't it so? Certain indicators that we're no longer in bondage to a conditioned mind. Without the need to know, like the dervish, just going about the task at hand. How many times, I don't know how many times, I've got up in the morning maybe and think, oh, no, there's this to do, that. Oh no, I'll bake a cake. So you bake a cake, and that afternoon someone rings up and says, oh, can I come over? I say, yeah, come over for a cuppa. How many times does it happen for us, these simple things? No argument. Okay, bake a cake. Isn't it so? But if it's like that with those little things, it's like that with the big things too. How long did it take that dervish in his travels to keep on whittling away at his piece of wood, not knowing what he was making? Or you're trying to hone your child into some form, make him a carpenter, and why'd you give him the training, send him off to a carpenter, and he becomes a violinist or something?
But he must.
Yes.
Becoming the violinist, he probably has the appreciation of how the instrument.
Yes, absolutely. What about ourselves? What about ourselves? The training we've had, scientists, and isn't it so? So there, absolute certainty and ways that we can recognize, even though it's not a place or a state, that it is. That question is answered very clearly. Where am I? How do I know? Unquestionably, we know. But there's more. Thank you.